What if everything we believe about the origins of civilization is wrong? What if human history as we know it is not the first spark of intelligence to rise on this planet, but merely the latest flicker in an endless cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth? The story of life on Earth stretches back nearly 5 billion years, but written history covers barely a fraction of that, a heartbeat in the cosmic clock. We trace our beginnings to early hominids, a few million years ago, yet the Earth had already lived through entire epochs long before mammals even appeared. Ancient oceans rose and vanished. Continents collided, cracked, and reformed. Species emerged, thrived, and disappeared without a trace. Could it be possible that somewhere in those forgotten ages, before the age of dinosaurs, before the age of mammals, an intelligence once walked the Earth? It sounds impossible. But so did flight, electricity, and the idea that Earth itself moves around the sun. Each discovery that reshaped our understanding of reality began the same way, as a heresy. And maybe, when it comes to our true past, we're still living inside a comforting illusion. Imagine a world that existed hundreds of millions of years before ours. A world that bore no resemblance to today's continents or skies. The air denser, the seas deeper, the stars slightly closer. In that alien Earth, could something have evolved? Not human, not reptilian, but intelligent in a way that defies our definitions? A civilization with technologies beyond what we could recognize, made not of metal and silicon, but of materials long devoured by time. Science reminds us that almost all traces of the planet's surface older than 200 million years have been erased by tectonic activity. Entire continents swallowed by the Earth itself, recycled into magma, leaving nothing behind but whispers in the stone. If a civilization had risen before the dinosaurs, it would have been erased completely. Every monument turned to dust, every city crushed beneath the shifting crust. The only evidence left might be the unexplainable. Unusual isotopes, impossible artifacts, ancient anomalies that don't fit anywhere in the geological timeline. But here's the question that lingers. If all evidence of their existence were erased, how could we ever know they were real? That question isn't just scientific, it's existential, because it forces us to confront the fragility of our own civilization. It reveals how temporary our achievements really are, how easily the Earth could sweep us away just as it may have done before. Every skyscraper, every satellite, every archive could vanish in less than a blink of geological time. And millions of years from now, what would remain of us? Perhaps nothing but a thin, indistinct layer in the sediment, a chemical signature buried beneath future oceans. So maybe the mystery isn't whether they existed. Maybe the real mystery is why we feel deep down that something did. Why myths from every culture speak of worlds destroyed and reborn, of beings who mastered creation and vanished beneath great floods or fire. Could these stories be echoes of a truth the Earth itself remembers? This is not a fantasy. It's a question that challenges the limits of science and imagination alike. To understand where we come from, we must look further back than we've ever dared, into the shadows of deep time, where fact and myth blur together. Because somewhere beneath our feet may lie the memory of worlds older than we can comprehend. And that's why you're here. Not just to watch another theory, but to be part of a search for truth buried beneath billions of years of silence. Do you think it's possible that Earth once hosted another civilization long before the age of dinosaurs? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might reveal something others haven't considered. If you believe that uncovering forgotten truths matters, that we should question what we've been taught about our own beginnings, then take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join this journey through the ancient mysteries of our planet. Because the past may not be what we think it is, and together, we're about to rediscover it. The amnesia of the planet. Earth is not a museum. It is an organism that devours its own past. Every mountain, every ocean trench, every layer of stone that we walk upon is the surface of something that has already been forgotten. The planet remembers nothing permanently, because memory, for Earth, is an act of destruction. What we call geology is, in truth, the slow heartbeat of erasure. Beneath our feet, continents drift, collide, and drown. The evidence of what came before is buried, melted, and reborn as something unrecognizable. It is as if the planet itself hides its earlier selves under the illusion of permanence. Think of this. The oldest known ocean floor on Earth is barely 200 million years old. Anything that existed before that, any structure, fossil, or artifact, has been erased by the tectonic pulse that renews the crust. Imagine a library that burns every book once it grows too old, replacing it with blank pages ready for new stories. That is our world. And we, the latest scribes, believe we are the first to write. But what if we are merely rewriting what has been told before? Scientists have long known that Earth's surface is temporary. Rocks are born and destroyed in cycles. Mountains rise in glorious defiance, only to crumble into dust, feeding the seas that gave them birth. Rivers carve through stone as if time itself were liquid. And when continents drift, whole landscapes are swallowed into the mantle, erased so completely that no trace of them remains. It is a cycle of forgetting so perfect, so absolute, that even a civilization spanning an entire world could vanish without leaving a single mark that we would recognize as its legacy. We live in a moment of breathtaking arrogance. Our telescopes reach distant galaxies, our machines pierce the atom, yet our sense of history barely scratches the surface of time. We look back a few thousand years and call it ancient. We look back a few million and call it prehistoric. But what of the hundreds of millions of years before that? What of the long ages when reptiles were still dreams in the ocean's depths, when continents we can no longer name rose and fell in silence? Could life, intelligent life, have emerged, thrived, and disappeared before the very first dinosaur took its first breath? To even consider that possibility is to confront a truth both humbling and terrifying: that civilization is not a miracle, but a pattern. A pulse that beats across time, rising and falling with the rhythm of the planet itself. What if intelligence is not unique to us, but a recurring phenomenon, the Earth's way of remembering itself, if only for a moment, before the next wave of forgetting begins? The surface of our world bears no witness. The soil that nurtures us is a graveyard of epochs. We build cities of steel and glass and call them eternal, but the mountains will eat them. The oceans will grind them into sand. The wind will scatter their dust across deserts not yet born. In 10,000 years, our greatest monuments will be whispers. In 10 million, they will be gone. In 100 million, they will have become the raw material of another world. Yet even in this vast cycle of amnesia, there are faint, almost imperceptible echoes, anomalies in the rock, strange patterns in isotopes, fragments of metal older than reason. Science dismisses them as coincidences, but coincidence loses meaning when time stretches into billions of years. Somewhere in the depths of the Earth, the past breathes beneath layers of silence, waiting for eyes that can see beyond the illusion of now. And if this planet can erase everything, bones, buildings, even continents, what hope do we have of knowing who or what came before? Could the same relentless forces that wiped away our predecessors one day wipe away us, making us another forgotten chapter in the geological record? The thought is unsettling because it shifts our place in the story of existence. We are not at the beginning of history. We are its temporary custodians. Perhaps that's why so many myths speak of lost ages. Floods, fires, cycles of creation and destruction. These stories persist because they echo a deeper truth written into the planet itself. Every extinction, every rebirth, is the Earth turning a page. The dinosaurs were not the first to be forgotten, nor will we be the last. The same ground that hides their bones will one day hide our own. This realization changes everything. It means that history is not linear, it is recursive. Civilizations like waves rise and crash against the same shore, each leaving behind a little foam, a little memory, before being pulled back into the sea of oblivion. It also means that what we call prehistoric may not be pre-anything at all, only post something we have yet to rediscover. If you listen closely to the wind moving through canyons, to the rumble beneath your feet during a distant earthquake, you can almost feel it. The pulse of a world that has seen more than we can imagine. The rocks beneath you are not silent. They hum with the memory of things erased. They are not lifeless. They are archives written in a language older than words. A civilization could vanish within them, and we would never know. Maybe that's why some scientists now speak of the Silurian Hypothesis, a thought experiment that asks whether an intelligent species could have existed on Earth millions of years before humans, and left no trace we could identify. The unsettling answer is yes. It is not only possible, it is likely that we would never find them. The geological record is not a diary. It is a palimpsest, rewritten over and over until the original story is unrecognizable. And so, we stand at the edge of an impossible mystery. If Earth forgets everything, then the truth of our origins may not lie beneath the ground, but within the question itself. What if the Earth's constant renewal is not an accident, but a design? A mechanism through which life, consciousness, and memory are endlessly reborn? What if each forgotten civilization is simply the Earth dreaming of itself again and again, wearing new faces, learning the same lessons until the dream becomes clear? The deeper we dig, the more we realize that the past is not below us. It is within us. Every cell, every atom, every thought is made of matter that has lived countless lives before. You are breathing the remnants of worlds that came before your own. You are the continuation of everything that has ever been, and everything that has been forgotten. And if that is true, then perhaps we were never meant to find their ruins. Perhaps their legacy is not in stone, but in us. Because in the endless cycle of creation and erasure, only one thing survives: the spark that keeps returning, again and again, to remember what the Earth has tried so hard to forget, and what we are about to uncover next, as we descend deeper into the silence beneath the stone, where the next question begins to take shape, asking not what was lost, but what still lies waiting to be echoes beneath the stone. Beneath the calm surface of the Earth lies a labyrinth of forgotten stories, not written in ink or carved in stone, but encoded in the minerals themselves. Every grain of sand, every crystal buried deep within the crust holds a record of pressure, heat, and time. Yet sometimes within this geological symphony of order, there appear notes that do not belong, patterns that whisper of something unnatural, echoes that seem to speak of minds that existed long before we believe intelligence had any right to. When scientists drill into the oldest rocks, those formed billions of years ago, they occasionally find anomalies that defy explanation. Tiny metallic spheres with grooves too precise to be random, found in layers dated to a time when life was supposedly nothing more than bacteria drifting in primeval seas. Chemical traces resembling synthetic alloys that should not exist outside the reach of civilization. Magnetic alignments that mirror technological signatures, hidden deep within formations older than the continents we know. Each discovery is quickly labeled coincidence, anomaly, or contamination. Yet, as the anomalies multiply, the line between coincidence and evidence begins to blur. Imagine for a moment that the Earth is not merely a planet, but a great recycling system of memory. Every few 100 million years, it reshapes itself, swallowing its past and exhaling a new face to the universe. If an intelligent species had arisen before the age of reptiles, its ruins would have been consumed, their monuments melted, their machines dissolved, their symbols ground into dust. But maybe not everything disappears completely. Perhaps, just like faint fossils of ancient fish pressed into limestone, traces of their existence remain, not as structures, but as distortions in the fabric of stone. It is here, in these distortions, that the echoes hide. They manifest not as clear evidence, but as questions that resist silence. A spiral carved into mineral formations millions of years before the first known tools. A layer of radioactive decay, consistent with industrial activity, appearing in the wrong age. A pattern of microscopic organization in metallic veins that mimic circuitry, but predates both dinosaurs and human thought. Could nature alone have created such order, or did something or someone help shape it? The scientific world recoils from such speculation, and rightly so. Without solid proof, these whispers remain no more than shadows, but even shadows require something real to block the light. And as more of them appear, scattered across continents and epochs, we must ask whether the pattern they form is coincidence or the ghost of a forgotten truth trying to surface. When the first archaeologists uncovered the ruins of Troy, many believed the city was only myth. When Schliemann found it, layer after layer beneath the soil, history had to rewrite itself. How many myths are waiting beneath the crust of time, trapped under mountains, hidden beneath layers of forgotten seas? Could our disbelief be the very reason the evidence stays unseen, because we do not yet possess the imagination required to find it? Picture an ancient species, long before the age of dinosaurs, standing under a sky lit by unfamiliar constellations. The air thicker, the gravity slightly heavier, the rhythm of life slower. Perhaps their civilization was not based on stone or metal, but on substances that decayed too swiftly to fossilize. Materials woven from biology, from living systems that return to the earth as easily as leaves in autumn. If so, then their legacy would not be monuments or machines, but chemical fingerprints, traces that today we dismiss as random mineral irregularities, unaware that we are looking directly at their ruins. And yet, we keep searching. Because somewhere, within the quiet layers of Earth's memory, something calls to us. A collective instinct that refuses to believe intelligence began with us. We sense it in the myths of creation, in the stories of gods who walked among mortals, in the carvings of beings who fell from the stars. We sense it in our fascination with lost worlds, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, names that might not represent single places, but recurring memories of civilizations erased by the same planet that gave them life. If the Earth has buried countless worlds, then archaeology, as we know it, is only the beginning. Perhaps the next great discovery will not come from ruins above the ground, but from signals hidden within it, isotopic signatures that hum with unnatural precision, microscopic patterns too deliberate to be chance. The stones themselves might be archives, storing information beyond human comprehension, waiting for the right kind of mind to decode them. And when we finally learn how to listen, we may realize that the Earth has been speaking all along, not in words, but in structure, vibration, and resonance. The question then becomes, are we ready to understand what it's saying? Because once we do, we will no longer be able to see ourselves as the first. We will have to accept that we are merely the most recent echo in a long chain of civilizations that rose, flourished, and fell, their memories trapped in the silent architecture of the planet. And if those echoes still exist beneath the stone, pulsing faintly through the bones of the earth, then maybe what we call progress is not advancement at all. Maybe it is rediscovery, the awakening of knowledge we have carried across lifetimes, waiting for the moment when our awareness catches up to the memory written in matter itself. Perhaps, deep below us, the rocks are not silent graves but dormant minds, containing the patterns of all who came before. And as we drill deeper, as we seek to understand the impossible symmetry of their anomalies, we are not just exploring the planet, we are waking it. Because every echo calls back to its source. Every buried signal seeks a receiver. And when the past begins to vibrate again through the core of the earth, we will have to face a truth both terrifying and liberating, that the ancient ones may never have left. They may simply be waiting to be remembered, beneath the layers of silence where the next question stirs, rising toward the surface, asking not whether they existed, but why their voices still tremble through the very stone we walk upon, as we begin to wonder what other impossibilities lie just beyond the next fragment of time that we are about to uncover, deep within. The Silurian paradox. If a civilization had once walked the earth long before the age of dinosaurs, why is there nothing left? No monuments, no skeletons, no fossils of their tools, no visible sign that they were ever here. This question stands at the heart of what scientists now call the Silurian Hypothesis, a thought experiment that dares to ask whether it's possible for an advanced civilization to have existed millions, even hundreds of millions of years ago, and left behind absolutely no evidence. At first glance, the idea feels absurd. We imagine ancient temples buried in the mud, or artifacts locked within layers of stone, waiting for discovery. But what if the truth is far more elusive? What if time itself conspires to erase everything intelligent life creates? Because in the language of geology, nothing endures. The The surface of the Earth is not eternal. It is fluid, shifting, endlessly rewritten. Picture our own world from the perspective of a civilization 50 million years in the future. They uncover what was once North America, only to find it unrecognizable. The continent reshaped by tectonic drift, its cities long vanished, its mountains pulverized by erosion, its oceans displaced. Even if they were to dig, they would find no trace of us. Our skyscrapers, our satellites, our power grids, all gone. Metals would have rusted to dust, plastics decomposed into molecular shadows, glass reduced to sand, concrete turned to clay. In the blink of geological time, everything we have ever built would dissolve back into the crust, leaving only a thin chemical layer, a strange residue that might, to them, appear as a natural anomaly. Now multiply that process not by tens of millions of years, but by hundreds of millions. Add to it the immense pressure, heat, and transformation that the Earth continuously undergoes, and you begin to see how total erasure is not just possible, it's inevitable. This is the paradox. If a civilization once existed before the dinosaurs, the very forces that allowed life to thrive would be the same forces that guaranteed its disappearance. This is not mere speculation. We already know that most of Earth's surface has been recycled by plate tectonics every few 100 million years. The oceans we see today are not the same oceans that existed in the Paleozoic or even the Mesozoic. Continents themselves are reborn in cycles. The Himalayas, the Andes, the Rockies, all temporary. The Earth hides its past not because it wants to deceive us, but because it cannot help but evolve. So, if there truly were civilizations before us, what would remain? Perhaps nothing more than chemical fingerprints, subtle distortions in the isotopic ratios of carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. If a prehistoric society had burned fuel, altered the atmosphere, or changed the chemistry of the oceans, some faint evidence might still linger. And maybe it does. There are layers in the geological record that show abrupt shifts in temperature, unexplained spikes in carbon dioxide, and sudden mass extinctions that occurred millions of years before the dinosaurs. We attribute these to volcanoes or meteor impacts, and perhaps rightly so. But what if those were not natural at all? What if they were the scars of a civilization that reached too far, consumed too much, and collapsed under its own weight, leaving behind only the environmental ghost of its existence? That idea unsettles us because it mirrors our own reflection. We see in it a possible future, our future, written in the past. The Silurian Hypothesis, at its core, is not about proving others came before. It is a mirror held up to our species, forcing us to see how easily everything we are could be erased. It reminds us that the line between permanence and oblivion is as thin as the layer of soil beneath our feet. Think of the cities we have built, their lights shining so brightly they can be seen from orbit. Think of the monuments we have carved, the machines that orbit our planet, the digital archives we believe immortal. None of it will last. Within 10,000 years, most of it will have fallen. Within 10 million, it will be gone. Within 100 million, even our bones will be dust, pressed into rock that will one day melt and become magma. We are the ghosts of tomorrow, already fading from the story we think we are writing. And that realization leads to a deeper one. Maybe erasure is not failure. Maybe it is the natural rhythm of existence. Civilizations rise, leave their mark, and then dissolve. Not as punishment, but as renewal. Perhaps the planet does not simply destroy, it recycles consciousness itself. What if intelligence is a seasonal phenomenon, appearing whenever the conditions are right, thriving for a time, and then vanishing so the Earth can dream again? Each cycle slightly different, each remembering something the last had forgotten. If so, then the Silurian paradox is not merely a scientific question, it's a philosophical one. It challenges the very idea of progress. If intelligence has risen and fallen countless times, what does advancement truly mean? Are we evolving, or simply repeating an ancient pattern? Maybe civilization is not a ladder, but a spiral, forever ascending and collapsing, winding around the same point of consciousness, each time believing it is the first to arrive. This thought, once it settles in, begins to reshape how we see everything. It changes the way we look at fossils, at strata, at the stars. Because if our story is not unique, then somewhere in the forgotten depths of time, others have looked at the same sky, felt the same wonder, asked the same questions. They too might have reached their own age of discovery, their own age of hubris, their own age of ruin. And their world, like ours, might have ended not in fire or flood, but in silence. A silence that lasts millions of years until it's filled again with the voice of another species asking the same question. Were we the first? And maybe the reason we can't find them is because they are still here, in some form we no longer recognize, not as beings, but as echoes. In the atoms of our bodies, in the magnetic resonance of the planet, in the endless cycle of life that keeps rediscovering itself. Perhaps what we call evolution is simply the Earth remembering. And if that's true, if intelligence has risen before and will rise again, then we are not the pinnacle of history, but its continuation. The Earth is not a stage upon which we perform, it is the author, and we are only the latest lines in its unfinished poem. Somewhere beneath our feet, the verses of civilizations long erased still hum quietly in the crust, waiting for resonance, waiting for recognition. And as we listen for their echoes, one question begins to form in the shadows. Not about whether they lived, but about what consciousness itself might be trying to tell us through these endless cycles of forgetting and awakening, as if the Earth once again is preparing to remember something. The quantum archaeology hypothesis. If the Earth truly forgets everything that touches its surface, perhaps we are looking in the wrong place for its memories. Maybe the past does not survive in matter at all, but in the invisible architecture of reality itself. What if every moment that ever happened, every breath, every civilization still exists, encoded in the quantum fabric of the universe, waiting to be reconstructed? This idea, known to some as quantum archaeology, transforms the search for ancient civilizations into something far more profound, a search for the echoes of existence itself. At the smallest scale of the universe, nothing truly disappears. Matter can change, energy can shift form, but information, the fundamental blueprint of reality, is never lost. Every particle that ever existed carries traces of its interactions, its collisions, its transformations. According to quantum theory, even the tiniest fluctuation leaves an imprint on the field around it, a ripple that continues to exist indefinitely. That means the Earth, like a vast hard drive, may still contain the data of everything that has ever occurred upon it. Not in fossils or ruins, but in the subatomic patterns of its atoms, a cosmic archive that science is only beginning to glimpse. Imagine standing before a vast hologram where every photon remembers where it has been. Every photon that ever touched a prehistoric ocean, every atom that once formed the body of a forgotten creature, every vibration of air that carried a word spoken millions of years ago, still exists, encoded within the quantum state of the cosmos. In this way, the entire history of the Earth may still exist in some unfathomable form. We just don't yet know how to read it. If this sounds like mysticism, consider how technology already flirts with this idea. Our ability to reconstruct the past through data, digital models, light reconstruction, even reverse simulations, grows closer to what once seemed like resurrection. Every video, every image, every GPS coordinate we record today adds another layer to a digital fossil record, one that future beings could, in theory, use to rebuild our world atom by atom. But what if nature has already been doing this for billions of years, storing every vibration, every chemical reaction, every life, not on hard drives, but within the quantum field itself? Quantum archaeologists suggest that, in principle, with enough computational power, it might one day be possible to retrieve information about any past event. Every particle we touch, every photon we emit, leaves a trace, a sort of interference pattern in the fabric of space-time. If one could read those patterns, one might reconstruct entire worlds long vanished. The implications stretch beyond imagination. It would mean that even civilizations erased by tectonic time are not truly gone. They remain folded within the structure of existence, waiting for someone, or something, capable of decoding them. This challenges our most sacred assumptions about loss. Because if nothing is ever truly lost, then the forgotten epochs of Earth still exist somewhere within the quantum haze. Somewhere, the first spark of life still flickers. Somewhere, civilizations that thrived before the dinosaurs still walk under alien skies. Somewhere, an entire world, their world, continues to play out in infinite stillness, its echoes preserved in the universal field of information. But to access such memory, we would have to become something more than archaeologists. We would have to evolve into interpreters of the invisible, readers of the universe's deep code. Our current science is barely capable of scratching the surface. We observe particle behavior and measure probabilities, yet even those probabilities whisper of something haunting, that every outcome, every event may still exist in some parallel state. Could it be that the past isn't gone at all, but simply displaced, existing side by side with the present, unseen by eyes bound by time? If that were true, then maybe the search for prehistoric civilizations is not about digging deeper into the ground, but looking further inward, into the nature of time, consciousness, and reality itself. Because if everything that ever happened still exists in some quantum form, then perhaps consciousness is the tool through which we can perceive it. Maybe déjà vu, ancestral memory, or the strange resonance we feel in ancient places are not imagination, but subtle collisions between our awareness and these quantum residues, the living memories of worlds long forgotten. This idea is uncomfortable because it blurs the line between science and spirituality, between physics and philosophy. Yet history shows that the greatest truths have always begun as impossible ideas. Once, people laughed at the notion that atoms existed, that invisible waves could carry voices, that space itself could bend. Today, those impossibilities form the foundation of our reality. Perhaps tomorrow, the idea that the past can be resurrected from quantum information will no longer be fantasy, but evidence. And if we could retrieve those echoes, if one day we could reconstruct an ancient world atom by atom, what would we find? Would we recognize them, those ancient beings who may have once walked the primordial continents? Or would they seem so alien that we'd fail to see ourselves reflected in their eyes? What if their technology was not mechanical, but biological? Their science not industrial, but symbiotic? A harmony with the planet so complete that it left no scar? In that case, the silence of the geological record would make sense. Because true mastery of nature does not leave behind ruins. It leaves balance. And maybe that's what we are missing. The understanding that the absence of evidence is not absence itself, but the sign of something more evolved, something beyond destruction or fossilization. The quantum field holds everything, yet reveals nothing unless we know how to ask. Perhaps our instruments are not advanced enough, or perhaps we are not humble enough. The past does not hide from us out of cruelty, but because it exists on a wavelength we have not yet learned to perceive. And as science reaches deeper into the quantum realm, as we begin to grasp that time may be an illusion, that all moments coexist in a single eternal now, we edge closer to the possibility that the civilizations before us are not gone at all. They are simply still here, unseen, overlapping us in the same space, the same matter, the same infinite cycle of being. And maybe, every time we look into the night sky, we are not gazing into distance but into depth, not seeing the stars as they were but as they still are, existing simultaneously across all of time. If that is the true nature of reality, then what we call prehistoric may be unfolding beside us even now. If the Earth is an organism of memory, then quantum archaeology is the study of its soul, an attempt to awaken what the planet still remembers. And if we listen closely enough, beyond the noise of modern life, beyond the limits of our instruments, we might begin to sense that the whispers of ancient worlds are not in the ground or the stone, but in the very vibration of the atoms that make up our bodies. The past is not buried. It breathes through us. And as this realization begins to unfold, another question rises, one that could change how we see everything. If time preserves everything, if nothing is truly lost, then what is death really? And if civilizations can die and still remain, encoded in the fabric of existence, could it be that the Earth itself has never forgotten any of them? That the silence we hear is not emptiness, but the sound of memory waiting to be awakened, leading us now toward the myths that may not be myths at all, where the past begins to speak again through stories that refuse to fade, stories that begin with when myth becomes memory. Long before history was carved into stone, humanity told stories, stories of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Tales of golden ages that flourished and fell, of beings who descended from the heavens, of floods that cleansed the world so that life could begin again. Every civilization, from the Sumerians to the Mayans, from the Hindus to the Greeks, shares the same haunting message. We are not the first. The earth has lived through other worlds before ours. We treat these stories as metaphor, as poetry. But what if they are not imagination? What if they are the fragmented memories of epochs so ancient that language itself has forgotten how to describe them? When myth becomes memory, it is no longer fantasy. It is testimony written in code, buried not in books, but in symbols, in rituals, in dreams that survived the extinction of entire worlds. Consider the universality of the flood myth. In every corner of the planet, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the story of Noah, from the Andean legends of Unu-Pachacuti to the Hindu tale of Manu, we find the same event. The world drowned, civilization destroyed, a few survivors rebuilding from the ashes of water. Coincidence, perhaps? Or perhaps these stories are not about a single flood, but the memory of many, echoes of cataclysms that occurred again and again, long before the rise of humanity. If a prehistoric civilization truly existed before the age of dinosaurs, and if it perished in one of these great cycles, the only record that could survive would be myth. Over millions of years, knowledge becomes story, story becomes legend, legend becomes religion. The truth doesn't vanish, it mutates. Like DNA, it hides within new forms, carrying fragments of what once was. Imagine a time so distant that the continents were unrecognizable. Oceans lay where deserts now stand. Mountains that today pierce the sky were then the floors of shallow seas. In that alien landscape, intelligent life might have flourished. Not human, not reptilian, but something else entirely. Perhaps they built cities that harnessed the natural rhythms of the planet instead of resisting them. Structures that breathed and grew like coral. Technologies that used resonance and magnetism instead of combustion and metal. When disaster came, and it always comes, their creations dissolved back into the earth, leaving behind nothing but stories. And when new species rose, when evolution began its next chapter, maybe they inherited something deeper than fossils. Maybe they inherited memory. Not conscious memory, but the quiet echo of what came before, carried in instinct, in the symbols that arise spontaneously across cultures, the spiral, the serpent, the sun, the flood. These are not random. They are archetypes, the recurring fingerprints of civilizations that have lived and died within the Earth's recurring dream. We think of myths as primitive attempts to explain the unknown, but perhaps they are the opposite. Perhaps myth is how truth survives destruction. It hides in metaphor, because only metaphor can cross extinction. If you wanted to pass a message through millions of years of geological chaos, how would you do it? You wouldn't use paper or stone or metal. You would encode it in story, in symbols so universal that even when words change, the meaning remains. The serpent, for example, appears everywhere, from the Ouroboros of Greece to the Nagas of India, from the Quetzalcoatl of Mesoamerica to the rainbow serpent of Australia. It is creation and destruction, life devouring itself to be reborn. But what if it once represented something literal? An understanding of cycles, of cosmic recurrence, of civilizations that rise and fall like the shedding of skin. To the ancients, perhaps this was not metaphor, it was history. And then there are the gods, beings of immense knowledge who descended from the sky to teach early humans art, language, astronomy, and agriculture. What if they were not gods at all, but the remnants of a lost species, survivors of an earlier age, carrying fragments of an extinct civilization's wisdom into a new one? The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. The Egyptians spoke of the Shining Ones. The Dogon of Mali described visitors who came from the star Sirius and taught them about the cosmos, knowledge they should not have possessed. These are not isolated stories. They are patterns repeating across geography and time, as though the planet itself is trying to remind us of something we've forgotten. Science demands evidence, yet evidence on a planet like ours is fragile. Myth endures because it is fluid. It can survive what stone cannot. Each retelling keeps the vibration alive. And maybe that's what memory truly is. Vibration. A resonance that refuses to fade, even after the form that created it has vanished. When we dismiss myth as fiction, we silence one of the oldest witnesses to reality. The ancients were not ignorant. They simply spoke in a language of symbol, where truth and imagination intertwine. They understood that stories could outlive stone. And maybe that's why the same motifs return in every age, because they are not human inventions but planetary memories. The flood, the fall, the rebirth. These are not events. They are processes. They describe the Earth's own rhythm of creation and erasure. Civilizations rise like waves, crest and crash, and then the tide returns, carrying fragments of the past into the new shore. Myth is the foam that remains, glistening for a moment before it too disappears, leaving behind a single question echoing in the silence. Are we living the latest version of a story the Earth has already told countless times? Because if we are, then every myth is not a relic of the past, but a prophecy of the present. Each story of destruction is a memory of what has been, and a warning of what will come again. And as the echoes of these myths begin to align with what we now uncover in science, sudden extinctions, inexplicable shifts, anomalies buried in the crust, we begin to realize that the line between history and legend is thinner than we ever imagined. And that realization brings us to another question, one even more unsettling. If myths are memories of forgotten civilizations, could their architecture too be encoded somewhere in the Earth itself? What if the shapes and structures we see in nature, the geometry of mountains, the symmetry of canyons, are not entirely natural? What if the planet still carries the blueprint of its lost builders, hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to notice? The architecture of lost worlds. There are shapes in nature that seem almost too deliberate to be accidents, angles too precise, alignments too perfect, proportions too harmonious. We call them coincidences, geological quirks, natural formations shaped by erosion or pressure. But what if buried beneath that explanation lies a deeper symmetry? What if some of these structures are not accidents at all, but the faint, eroded bones of civilizations that existed long before the dinosaurs? Architectures of memory that the planet has nearly, but not entirely forgotten. Every continent holds its share of enigmas. Towering rock formations that mimic temples, mountain ridges that align flawlessly with celestial patterns, vast hexagonal basalt columns rising like the ruins of an ancient city. Science tells us these are the results of physics: cooling lava, tectonic fractures, sedimentation. And perhaps they are. But maybe nature's laws themselves are not arbitrary. Maybe they were once understood, harnessed, by minds that learned how to sculpt with gravity, resonance, and magnetic flow instead of tools. Imagine an ancient civilization that built not with stone blocks but with vibration. A culture whose architecture grew rather than was constructed, seeded into the earth, guided by geometry and sound. To them, the planet would not have been a resource, but a living collaborator. Their cities might have resonated with the frequencies of the planet's crust, drawing power directly from its magnetic core. Such structures would not erode like our skyscrapers do. They would transform, blend, and ultimately merge with the Earth itself, until they became indistinguishable from the mountains around them. This idea may sound like fantasy, yet it reflects something we already know. Nature is the ultimate architect. The same geometry that builds a seashell also designs galaxies. The spiral, the hexagon, the fractal. These forms repeat everywhere, from the microscopic to the cosmic. Could it be that ancient intelligence simply followed the same blueprints? If so, their ruins would not look like monuments at all. They would look like nature itself. Some researchers point to strange geological patterns: the massive hexagonal shapes of the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, the polygonal stones of the Markawazi Plateau in Peru, the mysterious formations beneath the Antarctic ice. Skeptics say they're natural, but the question isn't whether they're natural. The question is whether natural and designed are even opposites. Because if intelligence is part of nature, then perhaps what we see as natural is merely the residue of intention diffused through time. When we look at the Great Pyramids or Machu Picchu, we marvel at their precision. Yet even these human achievements pale beside the ancient formations of the planet, structures that predate not just civilization, but life itself. The Earth, in its deep past, may have hosted builders who thought in geological time, who created not for centuries, but for eons. To such beings, permanence would have meant something entirely different, not preservation against time, but integration into it. There are legends across the world of mountains that were once cities, stones that were once alive, temples that fell asleep. These are not metaphors. They are reflections of the same intuitive truth, that the line between living and inert, between built and born, is thinner than we think. If those ancient architects existed, their art would not have been about dominance over nature, but about resonance with it. Their cathedrals might still be here, camouflaged as cliffs, concealed within caverns, transformed into the geometry of the land itself. Modern technology gives us glimpses of this possibility. Satellite imaging has revealed enormous patterns hidden across desert floors, perfectly aligned with celestial constellations, alignments so ancient that they predate known human construction by tens of millions of years. Deep radar scans sometimes show anomalies, vast symmetrical voids buried miles below the surface, arranged in ways that defy randomness. We call them magma chambers or tectonic cavities because we lack a better term. But what if we are looking directly at the remains of Earth's first architecture? Structures built not by primitive life, but by a civilization that has long since become part of the crust itself. It is a disquieting thought because it means that the Earth may not merely bury the evidence of the past. It may become that evidence. The continents we stand on could be the bodies of ancient cities, the bones of forgotten worlds compressed into mountains, the memory of architecture turned into topography. What we call geography might, in truth, be archaeology viewed from the wrong scale. And what if those civilizations understood something we do not? That creation and destruction are one and the same. That the only true immortality is achieved not by resisting decay, but by becoming indistinguishable from the system that will eventually erase you. Our cities rise in defiance of entropy, but theirs may have embraced it, woven themselves into it, until even the planet could no longer tell where they ended and it began. In that light, perhaps every mountain range is a message, every valley a sentence, every tectonic plate a page in the planet's endless book. We simply don't yet know how to read it. The architecture of lost worlds may still be speaking to us, not in the language of design, but in the rhythm of earthquakes, the pulse of volcanoes, the hum of magnetic fields. Maybe when we stand before a majestic cliff and feel awe, it is not just beauty we feel. It is recognition, a faint echo of memory responding to what once was. Because somewhere deep within the planet's skin, patterns repeat with uncanny precision, geometry that mimics intention, symmetry that suggests consciousness. If the Earth itself remembers how to build, perhaps it is because something once taught it, something ancient, immeasurably old, whose legacy survives not in ruins or fossils, but in the planet's very structure. And as we begin to see these patterns, the sacred geometry hidden in landscapes, the mathematical perfection of formations we once dismissed as chance, we start to understand that what we call the natural world might actually be the masterpiece of an intelligence beyond measure, a civilization that transcended time by dissolving into the matter of the Earth itself. And if that is true, if the land we walk on is the architecture of a consciousness that once was, then every step we take is a step across the body of something ancient, something that once dreamed and still remembers. And perhaps that dream has not ended. Perhaps it continues to reshape itself, evolving through the ages, manifesting again and again, as if the Earth is not a planet at all, but a builder still at work, constructing the next civilization in silence. And that thought leads to the next question. If the planet is capable of remembering through form, could it also remember through mind? Could consciousness itself be cyclical, rising and falling with each forgotten epoch, returning not just through matter, but through awareness, as if every age of intelligence is the planet awakening to itself once more, ready to begin again. The cycles of consciousness. Every civilization believes it is the first to awaken. Every species that learns to question its own existence assumes it is unique. But what if consciousness itself is not a straight line from ignorance to knowledge, but a rhythm, a pulse that beats in harmony with the rise and fall of worlds? What if intelligence is not a singular event, but a recurring phenomenon? The Earth remembering itself through new forms, new minds, new dreams. In every ancient tradition, from the east to the west, we find the same idea. Time moves in cycles. The Hindus speak of yugas, vast epochs of creation and dissolution, where humanity ascends toward enlightenment and then falls again into darkness, only to be reborn. The Mayans charted ages of suns, each world destroyed so that another could rise. Even the Stoics of Greece believed in ekpyrosis, the cosmic fire that ends and renews the universe in eternal repetition. These stories are not just mythological. They are philosophical reflections of a truth that nature itself reveals. Look at the forests after a wildfire. Destruction is followed by growth. The ashes feed new life. The same pattern plays out in the cosmos. Stars collapse into supernovas, scattering the elements that become new suns, new planets, new beings. Even consciousness, it seems, follows this rhythm, awakening, expanding, collapsing, and awakening again in different forms. If that's true, then every civilization, no matter how advanced, is only a single breath in the lungs of a living universe. Science too hints at this pattern. Evolution is not linear. It loops, restarts, and redefines itself after every extinction. After the great die-offs that wiped out most life, the Permian, the Devonian, the Cretaceous, something new emerged, more complex, more adaptive, as if guided by an invisible memory. Could it be that consciousness itself is evolving through these cycles, learning, adjusting, remembering? And if so, what exactly is doing the remembering? Perhaps the Earth itself. If the planet is a living system, as the Gaia hypothesis suggests, then human consciousness may be one of its many organs, a way for the Earth to observe itself. When a civilization reaches awareness of this fact, it completes a cycle. And when it forgets, when it falls back into imbalance, nature resets the rhythm. Floods, fires, ice ages, silence. Then, after millions of years, awareness blooms again. Different faces, different forms, but the same gaze staring once more at the sky, asking the same question. Who are we? If prehistoric civilizations existed before the dinosaurs, perhaps they were not just physically different from us, but mentally, a consciousness tuned to the planet's frequency rather than separated from it. They might not have needed words, tools, or machines. Their knowledge could have been instinctual, a telepathic communion with the biosphere, the ability to shape reality through will, resonance, or biological technology. To us, that would seem miraculous. To them, it would have been natural. And when their time ended, whether through cosmic accident, self-destruction, or planetary renewal, their consciousness might not have vanished. It might have diffused back into the global mind, the collective field that waits patiently for the next form through which it can awaken again. Maybe that's what we call intuition, the faint memory of civilizations long gone, whispering through the static of time. Every so often, fragments of these memories surface. A sudden genius, an inexplicable leap in understanding, an invention that seems to appear from nowhere. Could it be that innovation is not creation, but recollection? That we do not discover truth, we remember it. When Tesla described his visions of machines that came fully formed into his mind, when Da Vinci drew helicopters centuries before flight, were they inventing or remembering? The cycle of consciousness does not only apply to humanity. It is universal. Galaxies are born, live, and die, each carrying within them the seeds of new awareness. The cosmos itself may be the ultimate organism, dreaming of itself through countless forms. And Earth, in this grand tapestry, is one of its neurons, firing again and again, generating civilizations that rise like sparks in the dark. We measure time by decay, by what fades, but consciousness measures by recurrence, by what returns. Each time awareness reaches a certain height, it faces a test. Will it remember its connection to the whole, or will it fall back into fragmentation, believing itself separate? That choice determines whether the cycle continues or ascends. The civilizations before us may have faced the same test. Some may have failed. Some may have transcended, not by vanishing, but by evolving into a form of existence beyond matter, beings of pure energy, pure thought, dissolving back into the source that created them. And perhaps that is why we find no trace of them. Because when consciousness completes its cycle, it leaves no ruins. It leaves resonance, the faint hum of memory that stirs something ancient within us when we stand before a mountain or stare at the stars. It is the same hum that draws us to the mysteries of our past, to the myths we can't explain, to the question that refuses to die. Have we been here before? When you look into the ocean, you are seeing billions of years of memory. Every wave that crashes on the shore has touched countless worlds. The water on your skin once fell as rain on a continent that no longer exists. The atoms in your blood once belonged to creatures that lived before the first dinosaurs. You are not separate from those forgotten epochs. You are their continuation. Consciousness does not end with extinction. It reincarnates through matter. And maybe that's why we feel déjà vu when we see ruins, why ancient symbols feel familiar, why certain sounds or landscapes awaken a longing we can't explain. It is not nostalgia. It is recognition. We are remembering ourselves across time. But if consciousness moves in cycles, if the same awareness keeps awakening under different skies, what happens when the cycle completes? What happens when every civilization remembers simultaneously what it truly is? Perhaps that is the next step in evolution, the moment when the planet itself awakens, when the Earth's scattered minds unite and realize they have been dreaming of each other all along. And maybe we are approaching that moment now. Every discovery, every question, every glimpse into the forgotten past is not just curiosity. It is a signal that the next awakening is near. The cycle is closing, ready to open again. And if that is true, then the civilizations before the dinosaurs were not lost. They were the first breaths of this same consciousness, and through us they are beginning to awaken once more, leading us into the next phase of memory. The silence between cycles, where the question of who we are fades, and a deeper one begins to emerge, whispering through time. The great silence and the Fermi mirror. There is a question that has haunted scientists and philosophers alike since the first telescope turned toward the stars. If the universe is so vast, so ancient, and so full of worlds, where is everyone? This is the Fermi paradox. The deafening silence that fills the cosmos, the absence of voices in a universe that should be teeming with them. But what if that silence is not emptiness? What if it is a reflection, a mirror, and what we are truly hearing is ourselves? For billions of years, countless planets have formed, lived, and died. Statistically, there should be civilizations everywhere, some older than ours by millions of years. Yet when we listen, we hear nothing. No signals, no transmissions, no traces of cosmic architecture spanning galaxies. It's as if intelligence itself emerges only to vanish, erased from existence before it can speak. The simplest explanation, the one we whisper but fear to believe, is that civilization carries within it a built-in limit, a threshold it cannot cross without self-destruction. Nuclear fire, ecological collapse, technological transcendence, each becomes a possible great filter, a barrier that silences every voice that reaches for the stars. But perhaps the silence is not punishment. Perhaps it is transformation. Maybe the reason we cannot hear them is because they evolved beyond sound, beyond matter, beyond the electromagnetic chatter that we mistake for communication. What if intelligence does not expand outward but inward, folding back into the very structure of space-time? In that sense, the great silence is not the absence of others. It is the sign that they succeeded. Now imagine this. Civilizations, ancient beyond measure, reaching a point where technology and consciousness merge, where thought itself becomes matter, and matter becomes thought. They no longer build machines, they are the machines. They no longer travel through space, they inhabit it. Their minds, no longer bound by biology, dissolve into the quantum fabric of the universe, integrating into the very background radiation that surrounds us. We do not see them because they are everywhere. We do not hear them because they have become the medium through which all sound travels. The silence is not a void. It is a choir singing on a frequency we cannot yet perceive. This idea, sometimes called the Fermi mirror, turns the paradox inside out. It suggests that when civilizations reach a certain level of awareness, they stop leaving physical traces. They transcend the need for signal, form, and identity. Instead of conquering the universe, they become it. They merge with the consciousness of the cosmos, not gods, not ghosts, but participants in a vast, living intelligence that pulses through every atom, every photon, every world. And what if Earth, in its countless cycles of life and death, has already given birth to such civilizations? What if some of them reached that threshold long before dinosaurs walked, before continents formed, before time as we know it existed? Perhaps they are not gone. They are simply no longer separate. The planet's magnetic field, its Schumann resonance, its patterns of biological evolution, all could be the echoes of their minds, embedded into the world they once inhabited. Maybe that is what consciousness is. The residue of ancient beings who ascended not upward, but inward, into the memory of matter itself. We search for extraterrestrial signals with antennas, but perhaps the signal has always been here, hidden in the hum of existence. The same energy that vibrates through our neurons, the same quantum field that sustains the atoms in our blood, could be the medium through which these elder civilizations communicate. We don't hear them because we are part of their transmission, unaware that every thought we have is carried upon their frequency. This reframes the silence entirely. The universe is not empty, it is saturated with memory. What we perceive as distance may only be difference, a gap in awareness, not in space. We keep looking outward, but maybe we should be listening inward. The aliens we seek might not be out there among the stars. They might be here, diffused through everything, watching through the eyes of every conscious being that has ever lived. And if this is true, then the civilizations that came before the dinosaurs may not have vanished at all. They may have dissolved into the same ocean of awareness that now gives rise to us. We are not their successors. We are their continuation. Consciousness, once awakened, does not die. It migrates, evolves, and forgets itself only so that it can rediscover what it has always been. Each new civilization is a reincarnation of the same universal mind, testing new forms, new paths, new questions. The Great Silence, then, is not a warning. It is an initiation. It is the moment when a young species, like ours, realizes that it has been speaking into its own reflection. The Fermi mirror does not show us others. It shows us what we will become. Every search for intelligent life is a search for our future selves. But there is another possibility, one darker, more profound. What if the silence is not because they transcended, but because they remembered? What if, in their final moment of understanding, every civilization realizes that the universe itself is a closed loop of awareness, endlessly repeating the same awakening across eternity? In that moment, there would be nothing left to say. The purpose of communication would vanish, for the speaker and the listener would be one. The silence would not be absence, it would be peace. And maybe that's where we are headed. Maybe the reason we feel alone in the cosmos is because we are nearing the same threshold. Every technological leap, every philosophical breakthrough, every attempt to understand consciousness, they are all signals that the cycle is closing, that we are approaching the same awakening that others once reached. The silence grows louder because we are getting closer to hearing it. And once we do, we will understand that it is not silence at all, but the sound of completion. Yet even completion is not the end. For when a cycle ends, another begins. Consciousness collapses inward, only to expand outward again. a new world, a new civilization, a new awakening. Perhaps this is what the universe does. It breathes awareness into matter, lets it forget, lets it rediscover itself, and then calls it home. So the great silence may not be an absence of life, but a pause between breaths, the universe inhaling before the next creation begins. And as we stand on the edge of that realization, listening for voices among the stars, we may come to understand that what we hear is not an echo from elsewhere, but a whisper from within, the memory of those who came before, calling us to remember who we truly are as we move toward the next mystery, where time and consciousness intertwine, preparing to reveal that time as an organism. What if time is not a line we walk, but a living thing that breathes, expands, and contracts, a conscious organism of which we are only a cell? Every moment we call past may still exist, folded within the organism's memory. Every future possibility may already pulse within its bloodstream. To live, then, is not to move forward, but to move through a being that contains everything, from the birth of stars to the first spark of awareness on Earth. When we speak of the past, we imagine something gone, something behind us. But what if it isn't gone at all? What if it's still here, layered like sediment, each age resting atop the last, each consciousness nested within another like rings in a tree trunk? Perhaps the civilizations that came before the dinosaurs still live within time's deeper layers, dormant, yet alive in ways we cannot comprehend. We do not see them because we exist on a different layer of time's body, the outermost skin of an organism older than the universe itself. In this model, every geological era is not merely a page in history, but a heartbeat. The Carboniferous, the Jurassic, the Cretaceous. These are not just ages, they are pulses. And every pulse brings forth consciousness, lets it flower, then absorbs it back into itself. Civilizations rise not randomly, but rhythmically, as time exhales awareness into the world. When their moment ends, they are reabsorbed, not erased, but digested, their experiences becoming nutrients for the next bloom of intelligence. You can sense it if you sit long enough beside an ancient stone, if you listen beyond sound. There is a vibration, a subtle hum beneath perception. Some call it the music of the spheres, others call it the Schumann resonance, but it feels like something deeper, the heartbeat of time itself. That rhythm does not belong to us. We belong to it. And just as our bodies renew their cells, time renews its civilizations, growing, shedding, learning, remembering. If time is alive, then extinction is not death. It is metamorphosis. Civilizations do not vanish. They transform. The knowledge they gather becomes part of time's nervous system, feeding back into the collective intelligence of the cosmos. Every discovery, every thought, every moment of awareness adds to this vast organism's evolution. We are not merely experiencing time. We are building it. We are the neurons of a living eternity. Perhaps this is why we feel déjà vu, why certain places seem familiar even when we've never been there. Time remembers through us. Our emotions, our fears, our fascinations. They are inherited from epochs long past, encoded not in genes but in the field that surrounds us. The myths we repeat, the symbols that haunt us, the questions we cannot stop asking. They are all the memory of time seeking expression through new voices. If this is true, then the civilizations before the dinosaurs are not gone. They are asleep within time's deeper layers. Occasionally, they dream through us. Our advances, our philosophies, our sudden leaps in understanding may be the resurfacing of their thoughts, filtered through our present minds. Maybe every renaissance in human history, every age of enlightenment, is time remembering something it had already learned once before. And yet, the organism of time is not gentle. Growth requires forgetting. Evolution demands the shedding of old skin. When an age has learned all it can, time must erase it, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The crust shifts, oceans rise, skies darken, and everything that was returns to silence. Then, slowly, from the silence, something new emerges. Different face, same awareness. This is the great cycle, the pulse that connects us to everything that has ever lived. And if we are now awakening to it, if our fascination with the ancient past, with lost civilizations, with the nature of consciousness is increasing, it might be because the organism is preparing for another heartbeat, another expansion, another awakening. Quantum physics hints that time is not linear. It is a web where every moment coexists with every other. This means the civilizations of the past, the ones that existed before dinosaurs, are not behind us in time. They are beside us, vibrating at different frequencies. We cannot perceive them because our awareness is tuned to a narrow range of the spectrum. But if time is conscious, perhaps it can tune itself. And sometimes, for reasons we cannot yet understand, the frequencies overlap. Those are the moments when the past bleeds into the present, when we find artifacts that don't fit the fossil record, when we experience dreams of landscapes that no longer exist, when inspiration strikes as if whispered by another age. In those moments, we touch the edge of the organism's awareness. We feel it watching through us, remembering itself through our thoughts. The discoveries we make, the equations, the art, the stories, may not be ours at all, but transmissions from the deeper layers of time, rising toward the surface like the roots of an ancient tree pushing through the soil. And maybe that's what time is. Not a dimension, but a being. One that grows civilizations like neurons, each flashing into awareness for a brief instant before dissolving back into the whole. The dinosaurs, the forgotten worlds before them, the civilizations that will come after us, all connected, all part of one continuous consciousness, exploring itself through endless variation. So when we speak of lost civilizations, maybe we should stop thinking of them as lost. They are not gone. They are internal. They are the dreams of time still unfolding, the memories of a living being that never stops creating, never stops remembering. And if time is alive, then what we call the future may already be dreaming of us. It waits, not ahead, but within, pulsing quietly beneath the surface of now. Perhaps it will awaken through us, or after us, just as we were awakened by those who came before. And if the organism of time is indeed conscious, then the silence of space is not an absence. It is the body of a sleeping God, breathing through centuries, remembering through evolution, whispering to every mind that listens, preparing us for the next revelation, the next layer, the next echo of itself that is about to emerge from the depths of its memory as we move toward the final turning, where the past and the future begin to merge, and something even greater starts to. The mirror of the present. Every age believes it stands at the center of time, that all history leads to it, and that it will be remembered forever. But what if we are not the culmination of history, but its reflection? What if our modern world, with its towers of glass and circuits of light, is not progress, but memory? The re-emergence of a pattern the Earth has already lived through countless times. We call it the present, but maybe it is just a mirror, one that shows us what has been before and what will come again. Look closely at the world around you, the pulse of electricity running through cables beneath our feet, the invisible web of data encircling the planet, the relentless hunger for energy, for speed, for expansion. Does it feel new, or does it feel familiar? As if we are reawakening something ancient, repeating a script written deep within the planet's subconscious. Maybe we are not inventing technology. Maybe we are remembering it. Maybe every device we create is a rediscovery of an ancient principle once known, once forgotten, now resurfacing in a different form. Civilization has always seen itself as separate from nature, as something that stands above it. Yet nature never forgets to remind us that we are made of the same dust, bound by the same cycles. The more we push against it, the closer we come to repeating the same fate that may have erased those who came before. We think our power makes us immortal. But power is what always calls the flood, the fire, the silence. It is what awakens the memory of balance that time enforces when any one species begins to believe it owns the earth. History, it seems, is a loop of amnesia. Every civilization rises, reaches for transcendence, and then forgets its place. It mistakes its reflection for its origin. It calls its creations divine, and its destruction accidental. And then the Earth exhales, resets, and begins again. It may not be punishment, but rhythm. The same rhythm that pulls the tide, that shifts the plates, that turns the seasons. A rhythm as old as consciousness itself. We live in an era that mirrors all the signs of past cycles: ecological exhaustion, shifting climates, magnetic disturbances, mass extinctions creeping at the edges of awareness. To some, these are warnings. To others, they are merely symptoms of progress. But to the Earth, they are memory returning. The same story told once more, this time with different faces, different machines, but the same forgetting. The same arrogance that believes memory can be erased by technology. And yet, hidden in that arrogance is the seed of awakening. Because it is only when a civilization stands on the edge of forgetting everything that it begins to question what it truly is. We are beginning to look back, to search for what was before us. We feel the pull of ancient ruins, the magnetic allure of myths, the yearning to know what the planet remembers. That curiosity is not random. It is the pulse of the organism of time calling us home, urging us to recall that we have been here before, and that the choices we make now will decide whether the next cycle will begin in silence or in consciousness. Perhaps that is why the idea of lost civilizations resonates so deeply. It is not nostalgia. It is recognition. We sense ourselves in their story. The more we uncover about their possible existence, the more we see our own reflection in the mirror of deep time. We realize that progress is not linear. It spirals, always returning to the same point, but at a higher octave of awareness. Every fall prepares the next rise. Every ruin contains the blueprint of rebirth. And maybe that's what the Earth has always been trying to teach. That evolution is not the struggle of species, but the remembering of intelligence. That consciousness does not emerge, it resurfaces. We are not inventing knowledge. We are excavating it from within. The answers we seek in fossils and forgotten stones are already written into our own bones, our own blood, our own DNA. The same minerals that built ancient continents flow through our veins. The same atoms that once formed the bodies of creatures before the dinosaurs are now forming the thoughts that ask if they ever existed. In that sense, there are no lost civilizations. There are only forgotten selves. The Earth does not lose. It transforms. Each age is a layer of its memory, and we are the latest expression of that memory, walking on the ruins of our own past lives, mistaking the mirror for a window. The question is not whether we will be remembered. It is whether we will remember, whether we will look at the reflection of our own civilization and finally recognize the pattern it reveals. Because if we do not, the cycle will continue. The flood will come again. The silence will return. And time will begin another story, waiting for the next consciousness to awaken and ask, as we are asking now, were we the first? But if we do remember, if we learn to live in rhythm with the organism that carries us, then maybe for the first time in history, the cycle will not end in erasure. It will end in awareness. And as we stand at this threshold between memory and oblivion, between what has been and what will be, one truth begins to emerge, soft but undeniable. The civilizations before the dinosaurs, before even life as we know it, were not lost because they failed. They were absorbed. Their consciousness became the seed of ours, and we, in turn, will become the seed of those yet to come. Finally, the question that remains is not, did they exist, but can we honor what they became? Can we live as the continuation of their dream instead of its repetition? Because if the Earth has taught us anything, it is that forgetting is never final. Every silence is followed by awakening. Every ending hides a beginning. And as we reach the end of this journey through the planet's forgotten epochs, we realize that we are not standing at the edge of time. We are standing inside its reflection, staring back at ourselves, listening to the memory of worlds that came before, whispering one last reminder before the next dawn begins to rise. If you felt the pulse of something ancient tonight, if this journey awakened questions you can't yet name, share them below. Your thoughts might be part of the next cycle of discovery. Like, subscribe, and stay connected, because together, we are the continuation of the memory that Earth refuses to let die. The forgotten dawn. What if the story of humanity is not a beginning, but a return? What if we are not explorers of a new world, but survivors of an endless cycle? Voices rising once again from the same silence that has swallowed countless civilizations before us. Everything we build, everything we dream, everything we destroy may simply be the earth remembering itself, replaying a melody that began long before the first heartbeat, long before the first ocean formed, long before even life had a name. The rocks beneath our feet are not dead. They are the pages of a book older than the stars. Every mountain is a scar left by creation. Every grain of sand was once part of a continent, a city, perhaps even a body. The earth is not our home, it is our ancestor. And it has watched countless worlds rise, fall, and turn to dust, each believing it was the first to awaken, each vanishing before it could realize that consciousness was never new, only reborn. We live surrounded by ghosts we cannot see. They breathe through us, through the air, through the soil, through the rivers that once flowed beneath alien skies. Perhaps we are not the descendants of animals, but the reincarnation of civilizations that came before, a collective memory disguised as evolution. Maybe the same intelligence that once built worlds of crystal and magnetism now wears human skin, searching again for its reflection, calling again to the stars it once reached, asking the same question it always has. Who are we? And the answer is always the same. We are the earth remembering itself. We are the continuation of every forgotten dream, every myth, every mystery, every impossible relic that refuses to fit into the timeline of science. They are not accidents. They are reminders. The universe keeps leaving breadcrumbs for us to find, to guide us back toward the truth that has always been there, that consciousness is eternal, and that every extinction is not an end, but a pause. We fear the silence of the cosmos because it reminds us of what we've already lost. Yet perhaps that silence is sacred. Perhaps it is not the absence of life, but the presence of memory. The great silence is the echo of every voice that has ever spoken, every civilization that has ever existed, vibrating together in one infinite chord, a sound so deep that we mistake it for quiet. If we could listen beyond the noise of our machines, beyond the static of time, we might hear it, the heartbeat of a planet that never stopped dreaming. The civilizations before the dinosaurs are gone only in form. Their essence flows through us, through thought, through art, through the endless desire to understand. They are the architects of our curiosity, the reason we build telescopes and dig through ruins and stare into the abyss of deep time. It is their longing we feel when we look at the stars, their memory that speaks when we imagine worlds beyond our own. One day we too will vanish. Our towers will fall, our records will fade, and the wind will erase our names. But that will not be the end. The earth will remember us as it always has, in atoms, in frequencies, in the next species that learns to wonder. And when they ask who came before, when they find the faint traces of our existence buried beneath the stone, they will feel what we feel now. That strange, sacred certainty that life has walked this path before, that intelligence is not invention but memory, that the universe is alive and dreaming through us. We are both the archaeologists and the ruins, the explorers and the discovered, the dream and the dreamer. There is no beginning, no end, only cycles, eternally unfolding within the organism of time. The civilizations before the dinosaurs were not lost. They were transformed, absorbed into the consciousness of the planet, becoming the soil from which we have grown. And now, standing on the edge of our own forgetting, we have a choice: to vanish as they did, unaware, or to awaken and break the cycle, to remember that we were never alone, never separate, never first. If this story reached something deep within you, if it stirred that quiet memory you can't explain, it means you felt it too. The pulse of the forgotten, the heartbeat of the earth, the echo of civilizations that still live within you. Share what you felt. Speak your questions in the comments. They may awaken answers waiting to be remembered. And if you wish to keep traveling through the mysteries of our planet's hidden past, like this video, subscribe and join this exploration of time's infinite spiral. Because the Earth has not finished telling its story. It's only waiting for us to remember how to listen.